Can you make it?
He's going to be 20 minutes late.
12?
20.
That means he got.
He missed it. Yeah, he missed it.
Open it.
Yeah, I missed you.
Okay, got mine. Ready to go? I don't know, like 30 seconds. 15.
Trying to get her computer up.
Does anybody else here want to be on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy? We will discuss that.
Well, it's all in my district.
Oh, but I was just asking. Yeah, you want to be on it? We'll talk about
Well, we
that.
can talk about it.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. Okay, it is 9
Hold
o'clock,
on.
and Emma's not ready yet.
I'm sorry. I was getting there.
She's taking lunch for.
Okay.
All right, it is 9 o'clock. We will call the February 1st, 2022 meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Really? Public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors. Lisa Wright from Lewiston. I'm here today to address the ongoing efforts to establish additional carve-outs from the cannabis ordinance. First, I've always been opposed. Certainly, I live in a carve-out. I have a cannabis license. I own a consulting company that represents a number of farmers in that same situation, or farmers who are properly zoned but can't get in because of the carve-out. But really my concern right now is this ongoing effort to establish new carve-out zones. First of all, fees that have been paid by cannabis farmers are being used for purposes not benefiting the cannabis farmer. That's contrary to Proposition 26, which was adopted by the state of California, which prohibits fees being used for non-fee payer benefit. So you got a problem there. Number two, you have a problem regarding CEQA. What I'm hearing when I listen to these discussions about carve-outs, the concerns of the neighbors are actually addressed in our final EIR. There are mitigation measures for things like noise, for things like smell, for things like traffic. People that want to have that more restrained than the mitigation measures allow for should have come to the public meetings when it was decided what the decibel level is for acceptable noise, what the traffic volumes are, what the odor parameters are. That was not done. So if you go and open up the ordinance to add additional carve-outs, you're opening up yourself for litigation, number one, because now the whole ordinance is open. And number two, it's going to affect the final EIR that's already been certified by this board. If you do a standalone ordinance, you're subverting CEQA because a process is in place that you would be trying to go around to address concerns of this nature. I urge you to not expend cannabis resources or staff resources at all right now. We do not have a functioning cannabis program. Our fees are being diverted. That includes the grant money. Should not be going for these carve-out efforts. It's contrary to state law. Does not benefit the fee payer. I urge you to stop making these additional carve-outs a possible reality in whatever form, I think you'll be facing legal challenges. And I come before the lawyers, right? I don't want to see the county sued. I don't want our fees to be used for that. We need a functioning cannabis program, first and foremost. It's the heart of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the room?
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. My name is Lori Wills, and I'm from Lewiston, and I'm here today representing all of our members from the Friends of Lewiston Grass Valley Creek. And we are in an opt-out area that was unanimously approved by the Board of Supervisors, and we fought hard for that. Right now, it's come to our attention that one of the former licensees is suing the county and is in the midst of litigation, trying to litigate their way back into our opt-out area. And so I just want to make a few points about that, and we're asking you to give some mindful consideration to the history of this licensee before you enter into any possible negotiations for a settlement in the matter. And number one, Sabbi Family Farms was unlicensed at the time our opt-out was approved. They remain unlicensed, and they were not complying with the CEQA requirements. And we were appealing the renewal of their license. And in the midst of the appeal, before the board, there was a motion on the table, and before the board voted on that motion, that applicant asked the planning director to withdraw her approval dating back to 2020, and she did that. Then he attempted to get licensed under Urgency Ordinance 1355, and that maneuver was unsuccessful. Now he's trying to litigate his way into the opt-out. And so we're asking on behalf of all of the residents in our community who signed petitions and came before the board and were successful in obtaining an opt-out area, that you don't allow this particular applicant to litigate his way back into an area that he was excluded from through due process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment from the room?
Hello, I'm Rosanna Betz-Garrett. I'm here from Hayfork. I'm here to talk about the tax collector's office and the way that they are collecting the cultivation tax from Measure G. So the way that Measure G is written is in each category, the first 100 pounds of each category shall be taxed at no more than 25% of the full rate. 100 pounds through 400 pounds shall be taxed at no more than 50% of the full rate. 400 pounds through 1,000 pounds shall be taxed at no more than 75% of the full rate. And more than 1,000 pounds taxed at no more than the full rate. What the tax collector's office is doing is if you grow, or if you've transferred out, let's say 101 pounds of any category, they're charging 50% of the full rate on that whole 101 pounds. They're not tiering the tax, essentially. They're charging the highest rate that they can on the full amount of product that's been transferred without actually applying the tax correctly. And I am under the impression, through talking with people at the tax collector's office, that what needs to happen is the Board of Supervisors needs to direct County Council to direct the tax collector's office to enforce the tax accurately. That's it. I'm just asking that we please enforce this tax correctly.
And I'll step in here a little bit. CAO Coons, we have already directed County Council to come up with a a legal opinion on that tax?
Yes, we've received county council's legal opinion, and then we've had a request of some cultivators to meet with county council, one being the group that created the tax, and meet with her to explain how they interpret it. So I'm setting that meeting up so the two of them can sit down and county council can explain their opinion, and the cultivation group can explain their interpretation, and see if they come to agreement, or if county council recommendation remains the same.
All right, thank you. So we're in the process of addressing that.
I
Do
hear
we have
that.
any public comment on Zoom?
Yes, Adrian Keys.
Hey, good morning, Chair. Adrian Keys from Hayfork. I have two quick items I'd like to see if I could get addressed. One is, I know it might be a little bit unusual, but I think it would be really helpful if we could have a little bit of public input and like a public comment period during the ad hoc update today. And secondly, during the CAO staff report, I'm wondering if it would be possible if the CAO could describe the selection committee process for hiring of the cannabis division director. Those are just the two things I'd like to see today that would relate to the open comment. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rick Lutweiler.
Hi, yes, this is Rick Lutweiler from Lewiston, and I just wanted to speak up, as Lori did, about the opt-out areas and the potential litigation settlement discussions that are taking place. Of course, I don't understand what is actually happening in those litigation settlement discussions, but I do want to reinforce that I'm very pleased that the county is working diligently to get a permanent opt-out related ordinance in place, since the ones that we have in place now will expire over time. And certainly want to reinforce the comments made by folks that there's a lot of reasons why no operation should be able to be granted permission to operate again in that area as part of any sort of settlement agreement. And hopefully, if there's any thought in that direction, we can have an opportunity to speak to that in a public forum. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Anderson.
Yes, hi. Calling in from Lewiston. Sorry if I'm a little out of breath. I'm hiking around doing chores on the property. I'm just calling in opposition to the settlement with the Dos Santos property. The Board of Supervisors basically made a decision that they would not be part of our opt-out. And then now it would look like they would be taking a step backwards by settling and allowing this to happen. I guess the only other opportunity would be is if we would have to decide at the elections for a different board to make such decisions if this is allowed. For myself, on my property, there are some new developments in what I'm trying to accomplish for my alpaca and llama ranch. I've been in consultation with the Trinity County Office of Education. I met with Fabio Robles to discuss things going on in my property that would invite children, classrooms to come and visit. So far this past year, I've got Trinity together. I met with Anna Carson and Tekla Johnson to plan some service learning programs. The Rise Academy, which is part of the Trinity County Schools, has already been here for a full day of animal husbandry and fiber arts. The Continuation High School is planning a visit as we speak, as well as 2 homeschooling groups that have, one's already been here and one is planning to come soon. I also am in consultation with Mike McMaster on the Lewiston Elementary School Board, and Aaron Paredes, part of 4-H, to get some possible 4-H involvement going on here. So I stand in opposition mainly because the nature of my business would invite kids, students, families, and I really just have a problem with a large commercial cannabis grow being that close to my business with these being my priorities to, to have kids be here and have a safe environment for them. So I appreciate you listening, and I will, with my time allowed, I happen to be on the border of my property. And Kim Hunter, the former planner, said that she never really visited sites. So I'm just going to pan the environment. There's a commercial cannabis grow right here at the corner of my property, and then an illegal grow right behind me with a big outhouse right on the edge of my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
I see a raised hand.
Oh, thank you. Rhoda King?
Hi, this is Rhoda Kane from Trinity Center. I just want to encourage the board to remember that I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry, so.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
All right. Well, with that, we will close public comment and move on to item 1.1, presentations. Clerk of the board receive a presentation from U.S. Forest Service representatives regarding updates on national forest lands in Trinity County.
Good morning. Thank you for giving us some time on your schedule. I want to just give you a quick update on some of the things we're working on here on the Shasta Trinity National Forest, and specifically to the west side here in Trinity County. I want to let you know we're setting up open house meetings. There will be April 5th up north, the 6th of April in Weaverville, and the 7th in Burnt Ranch. Those meetings will be from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, and the intent is to not only to share information, but to listen to the communities. I really, with the fire season we had last year, got to be out in the communities and hear some of the concerns, some of the priorities that were really affecting everyday life out here. And I want to make sure that we invest some time listening to our communities and hear what they want to see done on the National Forest. So those meetings again are April 5th, 6th, and 7th. And then we will also be following up and setting some dates for the South Fork Management Unit for similar public meetings. And I will get back to you with those dates. As I get the agendas finalized, which I expect to do this week, I will route those out to you for any comments you may have. At those meetings, we'll also allow some time for our partners that we work with, the Watershed Center, the RCD, anybody else the Restoration Group. We'll make sure the Trinity River Restoration Group is there as well. So I wanted to touch on that for you. I wanted to let you know I expect to have the rapid assessment information out to all of you by the end of the week. I recently sent out the soils report, the burned area report for the river complex, and I expect to have the rapid assessment for the monument. Actually, it's for the Shasta Trinity. Have that out to you by the end of the week. As far as everyday work that we're doing, pilot remains our #1 priority. It's making its way through the process. I know it's been a long time coming. It's currently under review at the SO. We expect to have it out and be into its objection period by the end of February. So that'll be good progress, just keeping that thing moving. And with the intent that we'll be doing work out there to implement, to get everything prepped and ready for implementation this summer. The McFarland fire salvage effort, fire restoration effort, should have a final proposed action developed by the end of the month, so that's also moving right along. Prescribed fire continues. We continue to take advantage of these small windows that we're getting. We burned about 30 acres right around the basin here last week, and we're looking to burn another 45 to 50 acres this week. I will give you, we're really having a lot of trouble getting temporaries hired going into this summer. We've been really unsuccessful. I know a lot of businesses are struggling to get people hired, and we're included in that. And it's specifically, we're being hit pretty hard in recreation. We're really working through that process, but it's a challenge. So to meet those needs, we had Sally Cousins was at Trinity High School last night and did a session on how to apply for government jobs in the USA Jobs system. She did that last night here in Weaverville, and she'll be over at 5:30 at Hayfork High School doing a similar class for students and for just people in the community. So I wanted to let you know that was out there and available. We had a pre-op this week, and operations should be commencing on the Forest Glen timber sale that's associated with August Phase 1. So that should be getting going again this week. August Phase 2 continues to make its way through the planning process, still making some decent progress and good strides there. Happily, I'm happy to report that we got through the RAC process, and we have to get through grants and agreements, but that was $1.2 million through RAC in Trinity County that had great projects identified. The committee did just an outstanding job of setting those priorities and making recommendations to Rachel, and I just couldn't be happier with that group and the progress that they made. We're still working on the sweepstakes trail. That's been ongoing. It starts and stops based on weather, and working really closely with the Reading Trail Alliance. So that's been going really well. And then lastly, just wanted to give you a heads up that Chris Losey, our South Fork Management Unit Ranger, will be leaving the agency at the end of February. So I'm sure I think Rachel's due to be here next time, and she can give you kind of an update on what the plan is to fill in behind it. That's what I had for today. Any questions? We'll let you know we're still working through post-fire suppression repair. We're working through bear. We're working through all of those things. I mean, you can imagine it's a really big footprint. There was no way we could get all that work done before we got weathered out last fall. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
So thank you for getting that soils report and on the river complex, which is quite eye-opening. It's shocking in a lot of ways. So you're requesting, the fire suppression was 92 million, I think I read in there. And then you're requesting, this is requesting 13 more million to do the work. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, and we do have there's some funding that's made its way to the region that's disaster relief funding that we're looking to find opportunities to address some of our fire impacts here in Trinity County.
So some questions. If you get this money, do you hire outside help to come and do that work, or do you try to put this on your local staff?
I think that we're all really well aware of how much staff we have, right, and that we can only you can only spread people so thin. So we would be looking to use partnerships, use agreements, use any of those tools that are in our toolbox that help us do more than what we can do just with our limited staff. I will let you know we're also trying to look at increasing our staff, and we've made some strides in that direction. We recently hired a forester that'll be an additional forester on the Weaverville side. So we are making a concentrated effort to ramp up and do more planning, more implementation, more treatments because the landscape needs it, and specifically in Trinity County. That is not lost on me, and I firmly believe that's why I was put in the job over here on this side of the forest. So. Okay.
So once you do this emergency work, say you get the money and everything flows, what happens next? What you put up, the kiosks are burnt, the Boulder campground is gone, and basically what these actions are is just to make it not get worse.
They're mitigations, essentially. Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Is there monies that's allocated to rebuild these things, rebuild the trails, you know, put the kiosks back up, what happens next?
You're exact, so we mitigate to keep from having any further damage, and then we, based on the rapid assessment that we have and actually being able to access these areas through the field, in the field, we'll start to identify how to repair and get, I understand how important Trinity, the wilderness is to Trinity County, so the plan is not just to walk away from it, but it's kind of like you said, we have to mitigate the impacts of what's continuing to happen, and then we have to find funding, find partners, find opportunities to repair and get the wilderness back on track. If that answers your question.
Yes, well, I want to make it crystal clear. So the 13 million doesn't go to rebuild anything. It's just going to mitigate the damage that we have. And so the monies to fix the trails back up and fix the bridges in the Alps or whatever may be damaged, that has to come from someplace else.
We're pursuing those funding opportunities in different arenas, yes. So I would be happy to give you, give all of you an update on the progress we're making and what funding opportunities and what we're pursuing right now specific to the wilderness. I'd be happy to do that and give you a more specific, detailed rundown on all of those things, if that would be beneficial.
I would be interested. I don't know what the rest of the board, but I would be very interested in having that.
Yes, sir. I'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Hey, Tara.
Hello.
Nice to see you, and thanks for doing the presentation. So you and I have spoken, and Rachel and I have spoken, but I was just wondering if you would, so I'm not asking you a question, I'm asking you if you would give clarity to others that are listening, that you and Rachel realize how important it is that we build two complete, like, ologist teams so that projects go forward all the time, not we're waiting for our turn for that team to look over stuff. Could you just address that a bit?
Sure. At some point in the past, with budgets and retirements, we ended up on the west side with one full planning team. And as you know, as you folks talk about here, you talk about CEQA all the time, you know that we have NEPA requirements. And so we've had one planning team for the, a million plus acres here on the west side. So what that's meant is the South Fork and the Trinity River Management Unit have tried to, share the planning team back and forth, which essentially, to my way of thinking is like trying to fill up multiple buckets with 1 teaspoon of water, right? We do a little bit over here and a little bit over there, but it's very hard to set priorities and be successful in getting things done. So Rachel has come in and made it very clear to me what the expectations are about managing the Trinity River Management Unit in the west side and getting more done. And one of the ways that she's supporting doing that, as I said, is augmenting our staffing. The first position we got was a forester, so that's going to help us because we didn't have one here in Weaverville. The next thing, she's also supported getting additional archaeology help, and then the forest is looking at adding positions that have been funded through the infrastructure bill. So the additional funding we've gotten there. So I fully anticipate that the first year as we get through post-fire, it's going to be hard we have to do that and also then start to get traction on larger green projects that are geared towards preventing or lessening the impacts of wildfire. So that's really important to Rachel, and it's been expressed as a priority for me as well. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move to the consent calendar. These items include routine, controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments or an item they wish to be pulled from the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda? I see none in the room. Do we have any on Zoom?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Any board members or staff have any items they wish to have pulled?
I just have a quick question on 2.10.
A quick question.
Well, I have to pull a test.
Okay, so you would like to pull item 2.10 and any others? All right. Anyone care to make a motion
Yeah, I just wanted to pull one of my items, 2.16.
216, I didn't see you, sorry about that.
That's why I've got your back here as vice chairman.
Yeah, that's good. I was looking down. Anything further?
Okay, I move to adopt the consent agenda as presented, minus 2.10 and 2.16.
Second.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Brown. Supervisor Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item 2.10, Supervisor Groves.
I believe you have to read the item.
Oh, okay. Appoint Senior Financial Analyst Susie Hawkins as primary board member and Loss Prevention Specialist 2, Becca Cooper as alternative board member to the represent Trinity County on the Trendell Insurance Fund Board.
For sure, I'm sorry I didn't ask this question earlier, but was Susie the alternate previously?
No, Rebecca's always been the alternate.
The alternate.
So the reason I'm recommending Susie is it's a position on the board which makes financial decisions for the county, and she's the most adept at finance of the county. So there's many times that they discuss rates and how it will affect the county. So Susie seemed to be the most appropriate in the position she's in.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have.
Anyone else have any further questions about item 2.10 before I open the public comment? Seeing none, we'll open public comment on item 2.10.
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back.
I'll move to adopt 2.10 as presented.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
Seeing none, motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, item 2.16. Approve the modified job description for mental health clinicians 1, 2, and 3 effective February 1st, 2022, no fiscal impact.
Good morning, Shelley Nelson, HR Director. So this particular item, we were reviewing it and observed that there were some mental health phrasings that needed to be updated. And then after this item had been published, I was discussing something on it with both the department and the union, and it's under the section called Reports To. I had provided Emma copies of a red line correction. Has that been distributed?
Yes, it has.
So we were just noticing that, these originally were adopted back in 2002, so some of the classification titles have changed over the years, and they had not been reflected in here, so that's what I wanted to update as well. So on mental health clinician 1 and 2, we're changing the Deputy Director of Family and Children's Services, Adult Service and Substance Abuse to the current title, which is Clinical Services Behavioral Health. And then on the number 3, I think it is the same. So that's the last change that we're making that was not on the published item.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Shelley? And is there any public comment on this item?
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
We will close public comment, bring it back to the board.
I'll move to approve item 2.16 as amended by Shelley.
I will second.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Supervisor Cox, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. Reports and announcements. Reports from department heads.
Good morning. morning, Chair, Supervisors. David Kolbeck, Interim Deputy Director for the Department of Transportation. I just wanted to speak very briefly to some upcoming events with DOT, just for you to be aware, as well as for the community at large. We have been in coordination with Caltrans regarding a gateway project. This is the construction of monuments located on 299, both the eastern border of Trinity County, near Buckhorn Summit, and on the western border near South Fork, Trinity River. These are looking to be constructed in June of 2023, I believe, but there's going to be a coordinated effort to try to get public input into what these monuments should look like as a welcome to Trinity County. So they will principally be coordinating that activity for getting input, but I just wanted you to be aware to talk to your constituents if anyone has an opinion about that. I believe there will be some notifications in the Trinity Journal coming up, if not next week, the week after, I believe. I also wanted to speak very briefly to the Regional Transportation Plan, which is a 10-year plan that is usually developed in coordination with the census year on or about. And so that kickoff just occurred last week, and that is a plan that is mapping out all the projects of importance to the Department of Transportation over that period, and seeks to outline what funding opportunities are available to implement those projects. The reason I want to bring it up here is that there is ample opportunity for public comment on what those projects should look like. In the past, before my time, but I believe around 2010, 2011, there's a concerted effort to have public meetings in all corners of the county, in every district, as well as some other locations. That, I believe, it's being managed by a consultant in our transit planner, senior transit planner, Kimi Taguchi. I believe that will have a rollout in March where those meetings will be noticed and people will have a chance to highlight those projects that they deem to be the most important. That, of course, is dovetailed with a number of different funding streams that DOT taps into, both state, federal, and some local. I wanted to highlight one is the RMRA, which is the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Program, essentially, that funds quite a number of projects that are related to that transportation plan. Those funds are applied to the priorities set in that plan. To that point, though, the RMRA, which is established by SB1, principally coming from fuel taxes, excise taxes, is focused primarily on disaster, local match to other grant opportunities, as well as pavement maintenance. And with respect to pavement maintenance, there's some detail I could go into, but I wanted to bring this up briefly just so that supervisors are aware that these projects, these plans are in development. And I had been told that former Director Tippett would provide the board an update on our funding streams in the Department of Transportation, just to provide clarity into our priorities and how and when we do things. At some point, I'm happy to do that if you wish to agendize that item. I'm also inclined to leave that to the new director as that recruitment activity is proceeding. And if there's any updates, I can leave that to CAO Coons, of course. So with that, are there any questions?
You don't have any questions for? No. David?
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Diane Rader, Deputy Director of Solid Waste. Wanted to provide you with a solid waste update. I'll start off with the tub grinder, which we finally have permitted, and we're in the phase of setting it up so that we can see about getting some of the brush at the sites cleared up. And Trinity Center is the first one that we're prioritizing. And I keep reminding staff we need to make sure and get that project done as soon as we can. And it's just a process like everything else and is going more slowly than I had hoped for. But we're doing that, and then we'll catch up the other sites, see about maybe having some free brush collection in with when we have the grinder out on sites, so that we can just get it caught up with people that have been cleaning their yards and whatnot also. We've had questions on hours of operation at the sites because with larger loads, the attendants have been turning away some loads that come too close to the end of the day to be able to finish up by the time that the gates are supposed to be closing. So within the last 15 minutes to a half an hour during the day, then it's the attendants use their discretion as to what can be unloaded, and some need to come back on a day when they have more time. It's even after the public time during the day, then the sites have other activities that they have to do to finish up their day, and they don't want to get into too much overtime incurring, which is a cost control factor that we have there. And there are just things that have to be done before we can finish up our day. The exception to what's posted on the site for hours, which also has this wording on being prepared to have your loads being able to unload on time, is the Weaverville site where we do the inert brush and metal. And those we close at 3 because that one takes longer time to wrap that up at the end of the day because we have to arrange all the metal and push it and get the brush pushed and go through and clean out what has been collected there that doesn't belong and whatnot. So that's also another process that just takes time at the end of our day. E-waste is another thing that I know everybody's anxious to know about. We've been working on trying to get collected and cleaned out, and to our contractor who has really inconsistent timing lately with COVID and other things down in Orland where we send the e-waste. That also is a process that we have to send our staff, which after they're done moving trash and doing the collection on their normal stuff, then on one day during the week we do maintenance, and we send everybody out to, well, not everybody, but a crew of 2 people has to go out to each site, collect the e-waste, count it into the trailer to bring back to Weaverville, we consolidate there, we recount, reload, and then we have to run it to Orland. So that's another thing that's just a process that takes us time, and with short staff that we've been running for quite a while now, then it makes it that we just have to prioritize everything we're doing, and we just keep moving and try and get stuff accomplished with it, but it does take more time than what's ideal. And additional, after we get done with those things, then we're also working on trying to get our tires cleaned out, which is another one we can't get the contractor to come up and pick up tires, and we're at capacity there and are only allowed a certain number of tires per site. So we keep asking on that. On a positive note, I'm trying to work on setting up a pilot program that will collect carpet and mattresses for recycling free. And that one is in process and hopefully will be set up soon. And we're working with the Caltrans group that's doing the Clean California projects to get maybe a free dump day in April that we're working on. So we've got all of that, and then we're doing our general site maintenance and upkeep that's way past due on all the sites to try and get all of that stuff done too. But that's generally what we are doing with our time, if anybody has any questions.
Questions?
Yeah. Go ahead, start on that side.
So my question is, if your times are posted from 8 o'clock, we'll say till 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and someone shows up at 2:40 and you turn them away, I don't think that's right.
It depends on what, the attendants look at each load separately, and if it's a large load that they know from experience is not going to be unloaded in that time, then they generally can make a pretty good guess that it's not going to be completed at that point.
But you told me it's up until 3.
Yes, so it's 3 to get unloaded. If it's not going to be unloaded by 3, then...
Does it say that on the hours?
It does on the website, and I need to put a sign up in that area at Weaverville. I haven't gotten my signs updated yet, and they do need to reflect that that is what is going on.
So in the time being, should you put 8 to 2:30?
It generally takes a permitting change to change my hours of operation totally and to change the site hours, which is a process with the state.
All right, I just think if you say you're open from 8 to 3, you should be open from 8 to 3, no matter how long it takes. Because you can't ask me to get off work and be there at 10 to 3, and I get turned away.
And, okay, and I do understand that, but, okay, I can work on it and see what else we can come up with.
Thank you.
Burnt Ranch bins. Can we just get some new above ground bins? Like, are they available for purchase in the state of California? Are they back ordered?
I have a set of bins that we ordered in April that were delivered in December is the lead time. It was, we run them generally in $25,000 loads, and so they fit in budgets. So then we have the bins that we have to prep and get out to the site. Burnt Ranch in particular, then we've got bins that we've pulled from there that are in the repair process that we have. We've run across service issues with our contractors where we've decided to do more work in-house on our bin repairs, which again is another thing that staff diverts from and uses that one maintenance day, and bins are in that process also. And I have to apologize for not having asked in the past month on where we're at with the Burnt Ranch ones specifically.
Okay.
But I can find out where we're at in those, because they are in the process of being fixed.
Okay, that's probably one of the main things my constituents reach out to me about is when can we get new bins, all that. And then that would go into recycling. What is going on with, do you know, the statewide recycling and then also countywide recycling? I'm told people have to drive to Reading to do their recycling.
I had heard that the recycling place where Trinity Recycling used to be was open again for CRV recycling. I have not gotten to check that personally to see if that's the case or not. They're supposed to be open Tuesday through Saturday, I think, from 10 to 4 maybe.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure if that's what they're really doing. That's what I had heard they were doing.
Okay, and does the county have any interest, or does solid waste have interest in having county recycling program, or is there not really any capacity for it?
I have funding that comes from the city-county program that CalRecycle has, that I'm looking at trying to figure out something to do for a pilot program for some sort of recycling. That because we've always tried not to compete with anybody who is trying to do recycling within the county.
I see.
But I'm trying to look to see what we can do to fill in gaps.
Okay.
But it's on my list of things to do.
Okay.
But it is on there.
All right. Thank you.
Can I jump in real quick?
Okay.
With Supervisor Gogan's comment. Now, I do understand the hours of operation. Till 3 o'clock, we're up until 3 o'clock. As Diane was trying to explain, that after the dump closes, there is a close down process. It takes employees, and they can't do that because we're moving heavy equipment and that kind of stuff. That the public can't be in when they're doing so. The issue I see with that is the cost of overtime, and you haven't had the joy of sitting in here yet when we try and raise solid waste fees, and we will get, I promise you, dozens and dozens of people say, if we raise it, I'm just going to dump all my stuff into the woods. And I'm going to pollute our local beautiful forest because the county's charging too much. So it's a balancing act of what we can afford and what we can do in order to, and it's an enterprise fund that does not receive money from the general fund. Now, if the general fund decides it wants to help out with that, where does that money come from? So it really is a balancing act of how much our fees are, how much we can increase those to offset that. But when we do come in front of the board to ask for fee increases, we will get those people that are going to say, that's too much and I'm just going to dump in the woods. And we get that threat every single time. So we really have to kind of balance, is the public willing to give a little bit too? If they know the load's going to take 20 minutes to unload, showing up at 555, 255 makes it very difficult on us. So a give and take on both sides, but I understand your concern. But just in defense of Diane, because she does such a wonderful job in making sure that solid waste doesn't cost the general fund any money, that when we do come back, just remember that when we do come back to ask for increased fees and you get those threats, you can say, then we got to close it up early. Which one do you want? So, just my 2 cents. Thank you.
So my comment to that would be, I would like everybody that comes to the dump to be served. So if you have to say 2:30 for the reasons of not giving overtime, I think that's a better answer than turning people away.
Well done. Okay. Supervisor Guerrero, you, I believe, had a comment also.
Yeah, so just to piggyback, I would be more in Liam's camp, that I'd rather close early and fully serve people than, I don't know how mad I would be if I drove 19 miles one way and then came back 19 miles because I was 3 minutes late. So anyway, that's, leave it where. So now that the tub grinder's up and you have somebody to operate it,
It's the same staff that collects trash, collects...
I mean, you have somebody qualified to operate it now?
We do. The equipment operators are qualified to do that, yes.
Okay. So with the way the weather's going, I don't see any big major snowstorms coming soon, so people are going to start clearing their yards pretty quickly, I would think, probably by the 1st of March. So we'll be able to start getting that waste done, chopped up by the 1st of March.
I've really had some serious staffing issues lately where I can't promise it can be done by then. It's on our top list of priorities, but we still have to keep trash moving too. And like I had to pull my Class A drivers to run residential routes the other day because I didn't have anybody doing the household trash from the residences. So it's still a matter of, it's on the priority list high, but it still has to fit into our schedule somewhere. And I keep reminding staff that's the top of my list of priorities is getting the truck grinder out there so that we can get the brush all taken care of.
Okay. And then the e-waste, I was a little confused. Are we taking e-waste now, or we're not taking?
We have not been taking e-waste because we're full on that. I believe all the sites have been closed down through that because we have to go and collect what is out at the sites, bring it back to Weaverville, count it, and reconcile it to Cal Recycle's requirements for being in that program. And then we have to take a roll-off day and run it down to Orland, which is a full day trip to work out doing that.
So I guess my thought here is we're not functioning the way I think everybody would like us to function, and then probably especially you.
True.
How do we help you get this program going? I mean, we get yelled at, and then, you're here on the spot, and it's probably not the greatest place to be for your morning. So this is an ongoing problem that we've had on some of these items. And so I guess, and I'm not asking for an answer today, but I would surely like to have you come to us with some ideas to make things better, and then we can decide if we can do those for you or not.
I was sort of planning on looking at that in with when I started to look at budgeting and evaluating how the programs are working and what they really should be operating as instead. Because yes, I agree that it's not working the way that it is, and we really need to come up with some better way to do it.
I mean, we did harp on you about, debris brush, and you came up with a solution for us, and we approved that. So, I mean, I think the board's willing to make this is anything that we can. So anyway, that's my comment. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Cox, do you have any questions?
I don't. I appreciate what you did to change the wording on the website, and I just feel like with communication and clarity, people are willing to bend and give if they just have to understand. And so, yeah, being irritated at driving 19 miles, but if they had known, And so thank you for making those changes and bringing that clarity and to do it in such a clear and polite way. It was really nice.
Okay, if there's anything missing, then always let me know and I'll add more to it. Thank you.
All right, I do have a couple of questions, and mostly it's kind of along the same lines as Supervisor Brown. My question is maintenance on dumpsters at the Ruth transfer station, where there's been issues. I get a lot of comments, people who drive all the way from Kettenpalm and they get there at noon on Sunday, which is the day it's open, and it's closed when it's supposed to be open till 4 because the dumpsters are full.
Yeah.
And they only have half of their dumpsters operational. It's especially bad in the summer, well, maybe not now after the August complex because there isn't anybody at the lease lots, but where you have another influx of garbage. And so what is the plan to get those dumpsters fixed?
Like I said, we've transferred a lot of the dumpster repairs in-house so that our staff can do it, because we at least know that we're taking time each week to work on them. We just have this at all 9 sites, so it takes a while to get them done. We already have the Burnt Ranch ones pulled, that we're working on those, and plus those part are still with the contractor, I believe, that isn't getting them finished for us also. And Ruth is in that. The Ruth and Van Dusen both are in that. Junction City has repairs that are needed. It basically goes through all the sites. And with Ruth specifically, remember that Van Dusen is not a terrible long distance, and they're open different days than Ruth. If you can't hold until the next time Ruth is open, then maybe people would want to go to Van Dusen instead.
Yeah, it's difficult though. I know sometimes I get the email that says, oh, Ruth transfer site is going to be closed today for an attendant shortage, but the guys in Kettenpalm don't get that email. And so I know I've got some angry emails from people that say, hey, I drove from Kettenpalm to Ruth on a Sunday and the dump was closed. And so those are the kind of things. And same thing, what can we do as a board of supervisors to help fix that? Is there any way that you can find contractors that can go to the transfer sites?
Some of it is keeping staffing levels up and trying to find a way to arrange the staff so that we can cover them and drive somebody from somewhere else to be there. We just don't have those people to do that all the time. When I do know that sites are going to be closed or are closing early, then I, besides update the website on the solid waste updates page, we also have a 199 line. If you dial the main line and use the auto attendant, then we try and keep the recorded message updated there when we know about it. On the farther remote ones, we don't always know in enough time, but we try to keep them updated.
Anyway, those are some of the main concerns that in my area is just to, it would be nice to have those dumpsters fixed. Then we don't have to issue with early closures because there's still room. So, and if there's anything that I can do to help get that, don't be afraid to reach out. All right.
In case I'm not the only one that doesn't know how it works, how does the 199 line work? You call what an
if you dial the 530-623-1326, which is our main line, and an auto attendant comes up that gives you an opportunity to dial an extension, and you dial 199, and it's a pre-recorded message.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other department heads that wish to report out? Do we have any on Zoom?
I'm not seeing movement on Zoom.
You're taking a second bite of the apple.
I am, not in terms of DOT. I did speak with Lisa Lozier previously to report out briefly about the cannabis program. David Kolbeck, I'm assisting with the program. I recognize that I had stated previously that I would have a report out for you, an agendized item, the first meeting of every month, and I neglected to do that this time around. I apologize for that. So I thought I would take a brief moment now just to provide you some information. I understand that the ad hoc, I'm sure, will be able to fill in quite a bit more, and then there is a later agenda item to open this discussion as well. To some previous questions about where we are with our Appendix Cs, our environmental checklists, we have received 119 to date. Those are in process, as we have discussed previously, which some have, many letters have gone out requesting more information regarding those checklists, and some information has been resubmitted to us. So our consultants are continuing to do the initial review of checklists as well as the subsequent review as more materials are provided, as well as working on technical review, which is a step further down the line in the process that we've set up. I do want to highlight that when we initially started receiving checklists in October, it took us a good bit of time to work through those as our process was being developed and our consultants were coming online, something like 6 weeks to work through the first 25. I just want to highlight that the next 25 was knocked down to about 2 weeks in terms of the time to process those 25 and communicate with the applicant. As we have the process set up now, our consultants are able to, on the fly, pick up any submission that is in our system to process that as quickly as possible. So we expect that review time to be neck down in the future. I do want to highlight that we have a new YouTube channel. On it are the public meetings that we've had on December 20th, January 20th, and we are looking to have a meeting that is loosely set, so please don't hold me to this, for February 10th, which is a quicker turnaround for those public meetings. We recognize that in the interim between those, the 4 weeks between those meetings, people are really requesting more information, more discussion, more points of contact in order to complete their submissions, get the information that they need to be able to do that. So we are looking to have those meetings more frequently, as well as provide additional information. Some products I wish you to be aware of is we have revised the checklist, but that I am late on personally to complete my review of that before it's posted. But that is something that we have discussed in those public workshops. I will say that we are also looking to develop with our consultants a better point of contact. By that I mean something along the lines of an open house where they can hold office hours and answer questions directly of individual applicants. We are looking to bring that to fruition soon. And again, that is intended to get people answers that the questions they have about what or how to fill out these checklists and how to move forward. As I believe I discussed earlier, we are also continuing with our file audit, and that is one to clean up the files that are in our system that may not be up to date or active. I can say just generally that we have around 130 that we're looking to essentially close out because there has been no significant activity on those files in a fairly long period of time. So that is one where the door can remain open to some degree for those individuals that have not been active, but regardless, we are looking to clean up that process, clean up those files as much as we're able. And so in light of the discussions with ad hoc reporting out and others, are there any questions?
No.
All right, David, sorry, when do you think you'll be getting the hour or two of the consultants open so they can speak with the growers personally or one-on-one?
That is a good question. Honestly, with this last week and something like 7 hours of meetings in terms of interviews for the new division director position, I'm delayed, and so I'm not going to give you an actual time frame. I'm hopeful to have some significant activity or progress this week along those lines. It's looking to be something like, and again, please don't hold me to this because I need to negotiate this with our consultants, something like every Tuesday and Thursday morning there would be a block of time that people could request access to one of our consultants to help explain any particular issue that may arise. So I would have liked to have that up and running this week, but it may be more likely that next week. I can imagine that there will be an initial sort of rush at those blocks of times, and then it may peter out later. So we'll try to adapt as we're able to accommodate the questions that people have.
Thank you. Is there a common theme of Appendix C's coming back to have the same problems, common thread between a lot of the...
There are, yes, and that is where we have tailored our responses to individuals based off of those common problems, as well as individual problems we may see. Our workshops, what I've described in December 10th and January 20th, and then again upcoming on February, are ones where we're trying to speak to those common deficiencies. So example, the first workshop had a discussion around a project description and trying to explain and re-explain, and we will have to re-explain again, I know, just so that we're as clear as possible about what a project's description should look like or what we expect it to look like. So that is one example of ongoing concern and something that we'll have to continue to address in the future as these checklists are being drafted by the applicant. And there are a number of others, but I don't have those in front of me at the moment, to be honest. In technical review, I'm looking for something similar where we can see common problems that may arise and then be able to speak to those directly in those applicant or in those workshops that we're hoping.
David, thank you.
Right, thank you.
Any other department heads?
I'm not seeing any movement. I think we're good.
Item 3.12, report from CAO.
Yep. The board's pleasure, we had a request during public comment to explain the hiring process for division director. I'd be happy to do that if it's something the board would like to do.
Yes, please.
Okay. We followed our standard hiring process through the county where we run an open recruitment advertised on our webpage and other outlets that help promote openings for Trinity County. And what happens is the person, whoever feels that they are interested in a job and qualified, they apply to Trinity County and receive by our personnel office. The personnel office then redacts all the personal information that indicates who the applicant is and passes it to the individuals that would be ranking, and then potentially interviewing. And that was myself, David Colbeck, and Lisa Lozier. So once we rank the applicants from not qualified to extremely qualified, we send it back to personnel office. Personnel office then puts that list together of who qualifies for in-person interviews, and we schedule those interviews, and it's considered a screening interview process where we ask the same questions of each applicant. We had 7 applicants that applied for this position. We interviewed, I think, 4 in-person and 3 Zoom, or the other way around, I can't remember which way, but we had several in-person, several by Zoom. And we asked them the same questions, and we ranked them again from not qualified to extremely qualified, extremely knowledgeable. And we rank, and it ends up with a numeric ranking at the end, and we send that back to personnel. The personnel tabulates that. And in situations where we have, maybe 1 to 5 scoring difference, we will bring maybe the top 2 or 3 back. If we have a situation where one is just much higher than everybody else, which in this situation we did, we bring that person back in for what's called a hiring interview. And that allows us to ask questions that aren't scripted. Again, there's things we can't ask of age and that kind of stuff, but we can ask about previous employment and different scenarios and get to know that applicant a little bit better to see if they not only are qualified, but they fit what we're looking for to lead our team and be part of the team. And that's what we'll be doing on tomorrow. We're going to bring 1 applicants back for a hiring interview, and if it goes well, we will do a conditional job offer pending a successful background check. You have to answer your questions.
Questions about the hiring process?
Chair, would you consider opening public comment for this matter?
I don't think that we would need to. I think CAO Opens gave us a pretty good overview of the hiring process. So
I have one question, if I could.
yes.
When you hire the person, is the employment conditional for any period of time?
Anybody who is represented has a 1-year probationary period where they can be asked to leave without cause.
And CAO Opens, do you have anything else you are going to report out?
Not at this time. I believe Ad hoc probably has all the good information. Thank you.
All right. members of the Board of Supervisors. And we can start on your end, Supervisor Brown.
I don't have too much to report out on since the last board meeting. No out-of-county travel. No out-of-county travel. I have nothing to report.
Supervisor Gogan?
I have no out-of-county travel. I do have, as you do, the Class K housing.
Yep, that'll be.
We'll do that one later.
Supervisor Groves?
Let's see. We had a North Coast Resource Partnership meeting, our quarterly meeting, which was held by Zoom. Basically, it was just a rundown of what was going on, no major decisions made at that meeting. Unfortunately, due to Cannabis Ad Hoc, I had to miss the NORTEC meeting, and they don't seem to have a alternate for that, at least when I looked up, so. And besides that, no other out-of-county travel.
Supervisor Fox?
I just would highlight that I appreciated CEO Coons coming with me to meet with the Forest Supervisor, Rachel Berkey, in the last week. And I felt like that meeting was not only helpful, you know, she and I meet quarterly, but I feel like our CAO was able to enlighten her with some really important information. Just how Trinity County is unique. I mean, as a rural county, we hold a lot of things in common with other rural counties. She comes from a city background, and I just was pleased and impressed, grateful for the time that he spent. It was 3 hours out of his day to travel, and I thought he was just going to stay 10 minutes or so and kind of clear up one matter that was specifically kind of agendized for conversation, but that was, I think, a really important hour. Some real good bridge building took place there, and I think that everybody walked away in a much more enlightened space. So I want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for arranging that meeting. I thought that was extremely productive.
All right, I did attend a CGT CAP board meeting. Nothing extremely pressing to report from that. Issues with staffing and housing in Colusa and Glenn County, along with Trinity County and most of California. So nothing really there. And I think most of my report outs will be in the ad hoc. So we can move on to that. And Supervisor Groves, you want to lead off with the cannabis?
Yeah, sure. We had another Thursday Cannabis Day, and we met in the morning. We met with Heidi, who is our ordinance writer consultant, and we got some ideas for her. Stressed that the opt-outs and the 2 urgency opt-outs that are already in place and the retail license are equally urgent to get those in front of the Planning Commission. I think we've settled that she is going to be the person representing those. And so we'll see what goes there. Again, I want to emphasize for people that the ad hoc is not writing ordinances. We are facilitating the process for the public to be able to take part in this, which is through the Planning Commission. And so we are giving her what we see are the pitfalls and the questions, so she has answers. Also in that process, probably the first thing in front of the commission will be a workshop on opt-outs, and where everybody gets to put in their views on what an opt-out area should be long-term. Hopefully we can settle on a format for those for future, so any other opt-outs going in or out will move smoothly. I seriously disagree with the person in public comment earlier today about the CEQA issue in opt-outs. The opt-outs were part of the CEQA issue, and in removing an opt-out would actually, in my view, open up the EIR because they were already in, the major ones were already in. So anyway, that's something we could talk about with a CEQA attorney at some point. Then we met with the public and lots of good questions, a lot of nervousness in the cannabis groups about things not moving fast enough, about getting retail out. The pressure within the marketplace has put a lot of pressure on them, and there's a lot of uneasiness out there. I think uneasiness is probably too mild of a term. And then what happens with the opt-outs for people within the opt-outs is also made that group very, very uncomfortable, not knowing what's going to happen to them in the future, which is a fair enough issue. We then met at the 3:30 meeting with the Grow community, the private meeting with the Grow community. And then we had another private meeting after that with the anti-opt-out private meeting that they requested to share their concerns about opt-outs and what's going to happen to the legal grows within that community. And also there was discussion about what it means not to have a license in Trinity County, but having a state license, which we have as a county set policy, tried to keep people to have their state licenses through our process. And to make sure that the Grow community understands that they are not allowed to do business until they get their county license. Also, it was pointed out again, and David has banged on this a lot of times, but just to keep emphasizing it, is you have your Appendix C on one side, but you still have to comply with all other county ordinances. And so those, all other parts of the county ordinance. And so you have to be making a simultaneous effort to make sure that you've done that. The one good news is that David did mention, so I guess he was, I'll brag on him a little bit. It's a little step, but it is an important step, that 2 of the Appendix Cs have made it to, as of last week, made it to technical review. So they did not get sent back for being incomplete. They've now made it to technical review. Now they may not make it out of technical review, but that's one more step forward that we've had in the process. And Dan, I don't know, I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff there, but.
Not that I can think of. I think you covered it fairly well. It's a lot of what we've been dealing with, and the ad hoc is the same things, just trying to keep the process moving, and that's was our direction as the ad hoc, was to try to keep the process moving and ensure that it continues to move. I know I have received some emails, complaints about not being able to have contact with the ad hoc, which anybody that wants to schedule a meeting can reach out to either myself or Keith, and we will schedule a meeting and email. One of us will answer you, especially if you email both of us. So we are reachable, and I don't intend to leave anyone out. So anybody that wants to reach out, feel free, and I'll make myself available. Other than that, I don't think I have anything to.
I guess I'd be curious, what, since I formed that ad hoc in, I forget what it was, November or something.
Yes.
If you guys would have a new stated goal for the ad hoc as far as scope or duration, things like that, or if you feel like you're just kind of continuing on with, as you just stated, making sure that the process is moving forward. Example being, if there eventually is someone to run the cannabis department, or now that we have an ordinance writer, things like that, is there a checklist at which point you'd say, I think we've completed, or I think we've fulfilled the goal, or I think we've maximized our whatever.
And that's.
I'll step in. Dan, I promised Supervisor Cox something last meeting, and I apologize for not getting that out yet. But yeah, I think such as Dan pointed out last time, the transition plan, check, it's done. I think, yes, we should put something together and get it to the board as a whole. But at this point, Appendix Cs, which was the main reason for forming, are a long ways from getting through the process. And a lot of what we're doing is even though we are not the expert communication, but is trying to facilitate communication, which I would say, though it's not as the level that people would like, and it's not the level that I would like, we are still miles above where we were 5 months ago in meeting with people and getting people to vent their issues and getting them answers. So that's an important role that we have. And once the ordinance writing and the priorities are set, yes, that process should start moving on its own and inertia. And once the Appendix Cs are actually moving through the process and people have good communication on knowing what to do, then that would start winding down also.
And that's something I think we could discuss as the ad hoc and some of our upcoming meetings, is to come up with this is our priority list, and when this is done, we'll disband the ad hoc, or kind of so people do have an idea, and we're not just a never-ending ad hoc.
Thanks.
And we can report that out probably, and I'll make a note to try to remember to report that out March 1st of what our scope is.
Okay.
All right. CAO Coons, did we miss anything that we need to report from Cannabis Ad Hoc?
Do we have we haven't set the date yet for the next workshop?
Tentatively February 10th, but it's still tentative.
Yes.
So,
And so, again, for the people in the process, is that those meetings, the workshop meetings, are done on Thursdays. Those meetings take priority over our ad hoc meetings, because that has more information and you're talking to the experts in the field. And to reemphasize Dan's point, we have not turned down a discussion or a private meeting or a public meeting with any person that's contacted us. I understand there may be people that don't understand the process, and that we apologize for, but to be clear, the 11 o'clock meeting is the ad hoc as a whole, which is the staff members at the true ad hoc. And then the 1 o'clock meeting, which is normally the public meeting, is members of the ad hoc. It's not the ad hoc itself, it's members, meaning me and Dan, or David can be there, or Richard, depending on who has the availability. And then that's the same thing for any private meeting afterwards. And basically right now with the cannabis licensees, they have a standing 2:30 private meeting. And once a month we have a standing private meeting with the pro opt-out group. So if there's any questions about how the process works.
All right,
Chair, would you consider opening public comment on this item?
Not at this time. I'm sorry. I think we have enough contact Keith or I, and we can hopefully answer your questions, but I think if we open up public comment, we'll be here forever and not really get anywhere. So, item 3B, report from limited density rural dwelling ad hoc.
I'm gonna let you take it, since it's been your baby for 5 or 6 years.
Or 7.
Or 7, so.
We're actually making progress in the limited density rural dwelling ad hoc. The last 2 Thursdays after cannabis ad hoc in those meetings, we've been meeting at 5 p.m. for the limited density rural dwelling ad hoc. Our last meeting, Christy Anderson was involved, so we could address concerns that she had with the proposed ordinance we've come up with. This Thursday, Liam and I will be meeting with Jim Santiago and Lisa Lozier at 8 a.m. before cannabis ad hoc, and then we'll meet as a limited density rural dwelling ad hoc at 5 p.m. again. And I imagine that right now it looks like direction will be to present a proposed ordinance before the Planning Commission in March, if we can make the deadline. So we're making headway. We have what the ad hoc considers to be a pretty well crafted ordinance. The only thing right now we're waiting on, we're going to take those comments from planning and building and see if they have concerns that we need to address, and if we can do that before it gets to the Planning Commission level. And if not, then we will let the Planning Commission iron out the details. So, anything I missed in that, Liam?
No, just want to thank Christy and Margaret for helping us along here the last week or two.
And then, anybody have any questions about that? All right. So,
I guess I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna do, like, what's your public outreach strategy?
Public outreach strategy for the limited density rural dwelling is to do it within the Planning Commission. We're going through the steps. Our initial mandate was to see what we could do to take the pressure off staff. So what we've done is we've basically taken an existing ordinance. We've reached out to the county level employees, like what are your issues? We're trying to address those. And at this point, it looks like we'll have Margaret president of the Planning Commission, so there won't be, the only staff involvement will be Lisa checking over the staff report and getting it on the agenda, so we take the pressure off staff and still move forward.
Okay, so people from whoever want to be involved, best would be to wait for the
planning commission meetings, because we just haven't, we haven't got into that. I think it's better to have the public in a public meeting.
Okay,
so,
thanks.
Right, any other?
I'm just wondering if it might take the pressure off staff even more so and make that planning commission meeting shorter and more concise if you did hold some public meetings in different places in the county ahead of time. Ooh,
I'm sorry.
Finish the sentence.
I apologize.
No, I think that a lot of, I think that, personally, I think that the place to have that discussion is in the public meeting at the Planning Commission. That way everything's out in the open and we don't have any issues with, oh, you went and talked to these people in Weaverville, or you went and talked. There's no backdoor, no backroom dealings. Everything will be open, addressed in the public meeting, and I think that's a cleaner way to do it. Especially now where we have the ability for people in the far reaches of the county to be involved via Zoom. So
I hear you. One quick question, if I could.
Yep.
How does that differ then from the individual meetings that take place in the other ad hoc?
The direction that the ad hoc was given is the difference, because our direction for the cannabis ad hoc is to try to facilitate communication and try to keep the project moving. And basically what we're tasked with is the limited density rural dwelling ad hoc was how can we move this ordinance forward without pressuring staff. So Liam and I have actually almost been working as staff writing an ordinance with the limited density rural dwelling. Keith and I are not writing ordinances as cannabis. So we're taking the issue in the cannabis ad hoc was somebody needed to take the comments from the public and transfer those to the staff without having staff constantly balled up talking to the public. And that's not the issue with the limited density rural dwellings. So, and I do understand where it could be beneficial to have some workshop type things. The thing I have kind of against that is it's redundant. We've already done that. When I was on the planning commission, we had several workshops. We had several planning commission meetings and went through this process, but we were out of bounds. We didn't do the process right. So I think that we had something to work from that had already been through that process, and now we're just trying to get it to the next step, which is the planning commission, without putting all that pressure on Lisa, if that explains it.
It is helpful.
All right. With that, anybody needs to take a break before we move into county matters? All right, seeing none. County matters, these items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board, staff, or public may request an item be heard out of order. Do we have any request to hear any items out of order? Okay. All right. With that, Board of Supervisors, item 4.1, discuss advocacy priorities to advocate for through NACO and other federal representatives. Unknown fiscal impact. I'm assuming that's you.
Yes, I'm the contact on this. As I kind of mentioned, I think at the last board meeting or the one before, especially with NACO, I'm curious as the county representative on these, or specifically with this board, committee, sorry, what to prioritize, because it seems like when there's too many things, it gets spread thin, and I feel like if I can be given a specific task or item to focus on, I will have a chance of being more effective with my time being spent wherever it is in Washington, D.C. or Colorado or all these places that NACO moves you around to. So in the discussion, I outlined some of the main things that we've talked about at board meetings. I mentioned that there are obviously likely other issues as well. I did include the, this might be a legal question, if any of this discussion can kind of bleed into the infrastructure bill. I didn't mention, I did put it in the discussion, infrastructure bill opportunities and projects. So
Well,
does that?
To the discussion of the priorities, if it goes to that, you can discuss it.
Okay. So that leaves that as a discussion. The board may want to consider itemizing the infrastructure bill project priorities as its own item. There's just a workshop on that. The guide was released from the White House. It's about 500 pages on how to and what is included in the infrastructure bill, programs, grants, all of that. So I understand this is kind of a broad topic and it could be very lengthy, but I guess I'll take the leap of faith and say if it was up to me, I would be interested in kind of pursuing what Tom Stokely had spoke to at the last board meeting as far as requesting the hearing for the water rights and looking at that, since it's an item that was promised, requested, and has not occurred yet. I think that that's like a nice, those are kind of good ingredients to get attention justified towards this item. In the discussion, I outlined some of the other things as well. a lot of those things in forest lands are going to fall into the infrastructure bill and kind of overlap with that. And I kind of just learned about that yesterday, so as far as trying to break this into appropriate sections, I apologize if I didn't do a good enough job on that. And lastly, I would say that with the regional transportation plan, you know, that plan outlines a lot of priority projects. David Colbeck might want to speak to this, but I think some of those have been completed because that 2016 plan was for projects from 17 to 22. So some of them were completed, some of them have not been completed. A lot of those or maybe not a lot, some of those projects are shovel ready, which is a requirement for infrastructure bill projects. They will look at projects that are shovel ready. If projects are not shovel ready, we've got a short timeline to get them shovel ready in order for them to be applicable to infrastructure bill monies. And I believe there's an amendment currently happening with the RTP, or the Regional Transportation Plan. And so that amended plan would theoretically verify what I'm saying as far as it updating what is completed, what is pending, what is shovel ready, what is under review. Is that accurate, David?
Yes, and with respect to the RTP, yes, it's not an amendment, it's an entirely new plan that is being drafted right now, and that was what I was referencing earlier with the public outreach beginning in March in order to get input on what that plan should look like. Coupled with it will be the environmental review. Of course, anytime you're doing a plan, then CEQA likely will apply a plan that has implications for activities on the ground. So yes, I can see that where you're going with this is that the BIL or the IIJA can dovetail with the RTP and put those priority, they can speak to each other fairly well, I believe.
And those acronyms were the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better, for those that don't see it daily.
Yes, appreciate that.
So as far as technical information, before we discuss, I think that kind of covers most of the ground. I'm happy to answer any questions before we open it up.
So in your backup, you mentioned under Trinity River water, 10,000 foot acre issue. Which issue is that?
10,000 acre feet of water. Downriver users, that issue?
That's 50,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
I thought maybe we had another pot we were trying to grab.
Well, no,
Okay.
no, that's my typo.
All right. That's my only
Thank you
technical
for
question.
pointing that out. And I think that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, you're probably the most knowledgeable person on this. That would be included with that theoretical hearing, correct?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. So that water hearing kind of encompasses everything under Trinity River water. There might be some other points that are outside of that. Yeah. And then, you know, the forest land stuff, some of them, like I said, are going to be covered under infrastructure bill things. And then there's the other kind of annual issues, the SRS and the PILT. Recreational needs that overlap onto Forest Service lands. Carol's here, and they had drafted a letter that kind of speaks to those issues. I wasn't able to get the letter added as an attachment, so I think Carol will be best is just I'll bring that letter back at the next board meeting as its own individual item for signing and approval, since it's not necessarily time sensitive. But you're happy to comment. Feel free to comment on it now too during this item.
All right, well, do we have any more technical questions, Supervisor Brown, before we open public comment? Seeing none? All right. We will open public comment on item 4.1. Is there anybody that would like to speak to this?
So thank you, Jeremy. Sorry for the collaborative did vote Friday previously unanimously to request that the Board of Supervisors communicate to the Forest Service the need for additional recreational staff and funding. And so you're totally correct. It's not a time-sensitive item, but it is something that we would like to bring to the Forest Service attention, because right now the infrastructure bill, we've been told, the collaborative has been told, is going to focus on forest health and fuel reduction. That's where the positions will be, that's where the funding will be in order to implement their newly released plan. And so we just want to make the point that for Trinity County, because recreation is so important to our economy, we'd also like to have funding and staffing for recreation. So, and that was, again, from the Trinity County Collaborative. Thank you.
I'll have that item in your letter on the next board meeting.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment?
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board.
Yeah, if I could jump in here briefly, sorry, and I don't know if public comment is the appropriate spot. I wanted to thank you for bringing this up, absolutely, and I'm excited about the opportunities, as we just mentioned, with the RTP and those other funding sources. I do want to highlight one particular concern that did come out of the conversation that we had related to the Build Back Better law, BIL, or IIJA, with Representative Huffman. And that is something of federal monies that come through FEMA or through OAS for disaster response, and whether that is fire or flood. But it is something that I have a spreadsheet here with me that goes back to storm damage from 2017 that the Department of Transportation is struggling to be able to get through and to address and to correct. And that includes 2017, 2019, 2020, 2021, the list goes on. And it's something that is very much a burden for the department, and is one where we are appreciative and recognize the support that we get through the state and through the federal government, but it's one where often we do not have the momentum to keep connected with, say, an agency like FEMA. I'm not wishing to be critical, but I feel that FEMA is essentially built around the idea of hurricanes and floods. That may be not as appropriate to our particular area, to our county. They now, of course, are struggling with the notion of fire, and that is something that is of dire importance to Trinity County. So in order to keep those projects alive and to be able to actually fix damages that have occurred 5-6 years ago, I think that it's a topic to bring up to perhaps revamp how FEMA and or OES work in order to support rural communities like Trinity County. So I wish that to be part of the discussion as this moves forward.
So I'll expand on that too, if I may, Chair. All of those, and maybe this is common knowledge and I'm just repeating, but when the monies come through for the federal emergencies, there's a time allowance to complete the projects, and that causes a bottlenecking. And so, you know, a lot of people were sharing the excitement of, wow, here comes this infrastructure bill, all these projects we can do. And then the other side was like, well, we're kind of bottlenecked on all these old emergencies that we're required to complete by a certain deadline in order to get the funding for them. So it was discussed about requesting extensions for certain county-specific projects that we need actual FEMA extensions on for. So I think that's what David was referring to, and that's something that the board should consider working with Congressman Huffman on making those requests.
Quick question, when David said FEMA is going, are they starting to look at fire, or is that a request that Supervisor Brown advocate that they look at fire?
They are currently assisting us with fire. One example is the hazard tree removal that is occurring after the August complex fire of 2020 in southern Trinity County. However, that highlights the idea of the extension, where there have been, it's a concerted effort to deal with hazard trees. It has been slowed down due to some road failures that are associated, you could argue, with the fire itself, but more associated with storm damage, where those specific road failures are inhibiting the ability of those crews to actually address the hazard tree removal. We have already received one extension, and I'm looking to request another one. But if this is a question of NACO and a question of higher level priorities and having our voice be heard in terms of how these funding streams can work more effectively, yes, fire, FEMA, and the federal aid after disasters. Briefly, FEMA does help us with fire if it's a federal disaster.
I was actually trying to remember. I think I have still not
Yeah, you have closed
public comment. So we will, unless there's anyone on Zoom, we will close public comment, and then we can bring it back to the board for a motion for the discussion. If we need a motion, I think we
It's not agendized for a motion.
So
It's just for discussion.
So we do have a lot of damage that we have flood damage from, I think 17, that we have a lot of roads that haven't been fixed or paved or culverts put in. So that's kind of sets the priority that's being discussed. But I like your list, Jeremy. I think you're really going in the right direction. It'd be wonderful if you could have our voice heard on all the fire issues and get on to, I know these things take work and time to get on the committees and things like that, but you've been able to do that at RCRC, and I think that would be important to have Trinity County maybe try to work in a way it being the voice for Western fires. I'm sure there's a lot of other counties that want to be part of that. I think would be wonderful.
Well, I think your priorities that you have listed here are good ones. Personally, because I live on the other side of the hill, I would put the forest lands above Trinity River, but I know the county, the Trinity River is very important. So, and I think you can probably, judging by what you've already done, I think you can do two things at once. So I think that these are definitely the top priorities for our county, and a lot of the stuff we just discussed with FEMA is going to fall into these two items already, because it's fire and floods that you get FEMA for. So I think you're on the right track.
And as far as requesting that hearing, do I have full board support in that?
I'm not. Is that something that you would do through NACO, or is that something that you would?
Anytime, all the time.
I think that's important. As you know, like when like the water issues, these are not one and done. These are just being a little thorn that just keeps poking at the bear, and I think that's where that water hearing would be. You're not going to get it after one, but maybe after the 50th time you bug somebody.
Okay.
So I'm supportive of. I think that just start moving in that direction as you can.
All right. Well, I'll be in DC on the 11th until the 16th. So
good luck.
It begins.
Do you have anyone else have anything for Jeremy, or Jeremy, do you have any other questions for the board?
I don't think so. I tried to outline it as best as I could in my item. And so as long as everyone's good with that, obviously that typo of the 50,000 instead of 10,000. And I will go ahead and build a infrastructure bill item separately that we can bring back and have more thorough discussion on projects that are identified in the transportation plan. Maybe we can get an update on the amendment that's going on with that and what's going to get amended, and then be able to actually have voted on, these are top 3 or top 5 projects that the county wants to see get done.
Okay.
That are shovel ready.
And if you're going to build that agenda item,
Be March 1st probably.
Okay. Well, we don't have another meeting until March 1st, so I would ask that in your supporting documentation, if you can get that link to the guidebook to put that in the supporting document.
I will send it to Emma and she can send it to everybody.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move on to clerk of the board, item 4.
Emma, excuse me. Christy Anderson had her hand raised.
Oh, she did? I didn't see her.
You're on the ball today, man.
Clerk of the court?
We've closed public comment as staff. She can comment at the will of the board.
I'm all right with that. Christy, did you have something to say about item 4.1?
Yeah, I just wanted to let Jeremy know that I had some other concerns as far as I feel like Trinity County is poorly represented as a rural county during the declarations of emergencies through FEMA, because the timelines often starts at the date of the incident and rather than at the date it enters the county and affects the county. And because of that timeline difference, we often don't get that 100% reimbursement or that high reimbursement for that timeline. So I would like to discuss further with you, if I could, about getting some language in that direction.
Yeah, please send me an email.
All right, clerk of the board, item 4.2. Consider appointing a supervisor to represent Trinity County on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. No fiscal impact.
Close that meeting. That's what we can do, is to appoint one of our supervisors. If we have a volunteer or chair's discretion, can choose.
Okay.
I would volunteer.
Well, so first, before we start doing volunteers, if anybody has any technical questions of staff before we open the public comment.
I would just ask where is the new defined area? The Sierra Nevada Conservancy, I believe, is just the territory above Trinity Lake. Is that not correct?
And Lewiston Lake. But it's 100% in District 1, and I have been working with Nick and have sent several support letters out of District 1 for this.
All right, so any other technical questions? Seeing none, we'll open the public comment on item 4.2.
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board. My thoughts on this item are, since the portions of the county that are going to be involved with Sierra Nevada Conservancy are all in District 1. My thought is to make this an appointment that goes to the District 1 supervisor, much like the Highway 36 Commission falls in my lap because most of Highway 36 is in District 5. And Jeremy might get a small portion after the redistricting, but where it's just said that because it's all in their district, that's my thought on the idea.
And although I would volunteer, I think it's great for Keith, he wants to do it, it's his district, that's fine with me.
And I think it should be one that just goes with the District 1, regardless of who's filling that position. If that's
that does make sense. There are times, I'm sure, that maybe that District 1 person wouldn't feel comfortable with that, and there's somebody more opt. But that is what makes sense. And in my case, this is something I've worked on for a long time, and we've had a lot of different discussions about the Upper Trinity River and what can be done in the future about protecting that land and making it harvest the most water. And so I would really be highly interested in doing this, but it does make sense just to make it a District 1.
I'm looking at, I'll have to look at council here. Do we need to have a motion and a roll call on this to establish that Keith or District 1 be our representative? And then my question would be, can we make that just a District 1 appointment moving forward, and that goes with the with additional.
So, let me ask Keith a question.
Well, look, can I get an answer?
You're talking about making it a permanent district one
permanent position
appointment?
for the District 1.
I think you'd have to agendize that differently, because right now you're talking about the appointment just
Chair,
as it currently sits, as far as that means.
if I may, this item was supposed to be on our annual boards, committees, and commissions list and was missed because it was added partway through
Yeah.
last year. I believe we can add it to that list. It's added to that list and will be brought back at the beginning of next year
Okay,
to
so
be appointed.
what we're voting on is adding it to the list and then and appointing somebody right now.
Just appointing for this calendar year.
Okay. All right. That.
I know that that was my thing.
Somebody
This
make a
calendar
motion.
year, you will be present if you run and don't run. Say the person from District 1 has no want to do this.
Well, as most things on our list, there's been times in the past where somebody didn't want to be chair.
Sure.
And so if the
You
person
can
refuses
opt
to
out.
do it, then
I think this way works
the
fine.
chair, has to
But I-
reappoint somebody else.
Yeah, having this pay annual is fine.
We'll have that discussion when it comes up again, I guess.
You may consider at the annual point to maybe have an alternate position there as well.
All right, well, anyone care to make a motion?
That's actually a very good point. I think there probably should be, this possibly could be a very important thing to the county. So I think
And this
maybe in the future, when we do the next one, an alternate
would be a
should
good idea.
be something that should be
And then
considered.
the other thing that would go along with this after our discussion with this year in Nevada Conservancy is there is a possibility you'll be a voting member of their board. And then you'll be into their rotation to become a voting member.
I think we automatically do.
Yeah, so that representative would then
Right.
be on the board there, so, well, I will make a motion to appoint Supervisor Groves to the position on the Sierra Nevada Conservancy.
I would second that.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Chairman Frazier, second by Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 4.3, County Administrative Office, authorize the waiver of various building and planning department fees related to the county projects funded with general fund dollars.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, members of the board. What we're asking is to kind of streamline the process for any general fund departments that are doing any type of building, for example, or general services is doing a roofing project right now, fixing some of the county buildings. Well, each one requires a building permit, which we're not asking to get rid of the building permit. Still have that process, still go through the full permitting process, but to automatically waive the fees for any of our general fund departments. It's really, we have an internet zero, but I think it actually will save some money because when we have to do a fee waiver, we still have to do all the building permit process, but then the staff has to bring it to the board has to go through it. So there is some additional cost this would save, being able to just have a full fee waiver for any general fund department, not non-general fund departments, because they can work that into their cost plans. But for general fund departments, we're just really taking the money out of the right, we're charging ourselves to take money out of our left pocket, put it into the right pocket. And ultimately, we're gonna, it's been, I haven't had the board yet deny a fee waiver for one of these projects. So we're just asking the board to make that a permanent fee waiver so we don't have to bring it back to the board each time.
Okay. Do we have any technical questions?
This would in no way hop the county in front of anybody else's building permits.
No, they still have to go through all the same loops and file the same paperwork and be inspected by our county inspectors.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on item 4.3? don't see any in the room.
I have none, Chair. Thank you.
All right, that will close public comment on item 4.3 and bring it back to the board.
I'll move to accept as 4.3 as submitted.
I will second.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
Supervisor Cox,
Aye.
Supervisor Brown,
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resources, item 4.4, modify the department allocation list for the County Administrative Office Grants Division to read 1 Division Director and the Solid Waste Division to read 12 gate attendants effective February 1, 2022. No impact to the general fund. Approximate cost and salary and benefits per month for the Division Director at A-Step is $10,956, and for a gate attendant is $4,843. Kelly.
Okay, good morning. So Administration Office is requesting approval to modify their department allocation listing within 2 of their departments or divisions that they oversee. The first is the Grants Division. They have a significant amount of funding allocated to the Down Payment Assistance Program, as well as the Housing Rehab Program that were issued many years ago, but have not been maintained nor monitored. It's the county's responsibility to monitor these programs to assure that they are still meeting state guidelines. In the auditing and monitoring of these funds, if they're not completed, the county would be responsible for the repayment of the loaned funds. So the allocation of the division director places this responsibility of assuring state compliance with these funds and many other state allocations. The counties have the obligation to monitor grant funds, and without this position, it would fall upon the Administration Office to perform these mandated reports. Beyond the fiscal responsibility of the CDBG, the HOME, and the Calhoun funds, the division director will also oversee the new instituted homeless services program, coordinated with probation, behavioral health, and local nonprofits in the community to develop affordable housing and economic development projects. And the department is completely grant funded and will serve as a point of contact for all of these essential services. The second category of request is for solid waste. And I think the earlier discussion during department head reports, this might be one of those things that could assist. The department wishes to increase their number of allocations for their gate attendant position within the department. They currently have 10. They'd like to increase it to 12 full-time equivalents. While not currently funded as such, an increase of 2 allocations would allow for the flexibility to correct deficiencies in the structure at the various transfer sites as it is now, and would be the first step in upgrading efficiencies at these sites. So current staffing levels make it difficult to keep sufficient staff on hand to cover illnesses, emergency assignments, and scheduled leaves because there is not a current pool of on-call personnel available to work only as needed. Also at random intervals, as well as various parts of the county, as the department has had in the past. This trend is noticeable in the recent closures of the smaller sites when the regular attendants are not available, as the department can currently only reduce the main transfer site staff by minimal numbers to cover shortages elsewhere throughout the county. If granted additional allocations, there should be a reasonable number of attendants to keep trained to cover shortages and provide extra staff to perform maintenance for all sites, which could catch up the backlog collection of miscellaneous universal wastes, such as electronic waste, which we discussed earlier, batteries and light tubes, among other things. There is sufficient funding within both of these departments' budgets to cover the additional allocations, and there is no fiscal impact to the general fund.
Thank you. Does anyone have any technical questions before I open the public comment? All right. Do we have any public comment on item 4.4?
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, that will close public comment, bring it back to the board.
So when we asked what we do, I guess this is it, huh?
That's a start.
See, you should have said, vote my way. With that, I would move to accept 4.4 as presented.
I would second.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves,
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan,
Aye.
Supervisor Brown,
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item 4.5, take the following actions effective February 1st, 2022. Modify the departmental allocation list for Health and Human Services Public Health Division to read 2, Public Health Nurse 1, 2, or 3, or Community Health Nurse 1 or 2, and approve temporarily waiving the requirement to possess a certificate as a public health nurse issued by the Board of Registered Nursing, BRN, to employee ID number 02066 to promote to a public health nurse 3, and 3, pursuant to the County Code Section 2.60.410, approve employee ID number 02066 to promote to G237 Step F. No impact to general fund. Approximate cost and salary and benefits per month for a public health nurse 3 at E step is $10,869 and at F step is $11,553. That was a mouthful.
It was a challenging one to write and put together. So the Public Health Division is requesting to approve modifying their department allocation list by simply adding an additional classification within their nurse series, which is the Public Health Nurse 3 classification. This would not be increasing allocations, it's just adding the additional allocation. The second part of the item is we have a set employee listed by their ID number. They've actually completed their Bachelor of Science degree in nursing, which is the BSN, this past summer, 2021, and from a university that is accredited by the State of California Board of Registered Nurses, and this qualifies them for a public health nursing certificate. This employee had submitted the required documentation and paid the fee for the certificate several months ago. Actual possession of this certificate has been delayed to the state's backlog through the BRN. Human Resources has received copies of the degree, their transcripts, as well as the application submission receipt. This employee has worked various levels of nursing positions continuously within the department for the past 8 years. Has satisfied all the requirements of the certificate, and the department is requesting the board allow the county to go ahead and promote this employee to a Public Health Nurse 3 effective February 1st, with the understanding that the employee will provide the certificate as soon as it's received. And then the final item of this is, if you do approve that, per the county code, when we promote employees, they should have their promotion within 5% of their current salary. And this particular employee, in order to promote them to the G237, it would place them at an F step, which is actually a longevity step. And so that does require your approval to do so. And if we don't approve that, then their promotion would be falling less and not meeting the code's requirement.
Any technical questions?
I have one. Shelley, the submission of the documentation and the fee that's paid for the certificate, that is just a ministerial process, and there's nothing discretionary about that?
Correct.
Yeah.
But she has submitted to HR, so I've confirmed it's all accurate and has happened.
Any other technical questions? All right, we will open the public comment on item 4.5. Do we have any public comment?
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
All right, I'll close public comment, bring it back to board.
Move to approve as presented.
I will second.
Seeing no further comment, motion by Supervisor Brown, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Haven't done that in a while.
Okay, item 4.6, take the following actions effective February 1st, 2022. Adopt a resolution establishing salary and benefits for non-represented general classifications And 2, modify the alphabetical listing of classifications to reflect the following classifications and salary ranges. Accounting Technician 1, NR N175, Accounting Technician 2, NR N183, and Accounting Technician Senior, NR N193. No fiscal impact.
So back in September, the board had approved in the budget for the administration office to recruit for an accounting technician classification. And it's been discovered in the non-rep general resolution that somehow those classification series did not transfer forward over the several years. So I'm requesting that they be recognized back in that resolution. And then the salary schedule, of course, needs to reflect those as well as non-represented classifications instead of the general equivalents. So that's what this item is doing, is just making those corrections.
Any technical questions? Any public comment on this item?
I see none in the room. I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Close public comment, bring it back to the board. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to approve as presented.
I will second.
Motion by Supervisor Brown, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox. Aye. Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Planning and zoning, item 4.7. Authorize staff to issue prorated credit to commercial cannabis cultivators holding non-expired provisional licenses on October 31st, 2021. Unknown fiscal impact.
I guess I'll take this one as I'm the planning and zoning handed me.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Chair, members of the board. What we're asking here is a result of the order to suspend our cannabis program as of October 31st. We had several cultivators that were holding their provisional permits that were, just as use an example, that say it was issued on July 31st of 2021. They should expire on July 30th of 22. However, with the suspension of the program, there's a period of time in which they can't cultivate and sell the product, so therefore the product they received is not a full 12 months. We're not asking, I want to make sure we clarify, we're not asking for those who have submitted an application fee, which is around $2,500, to receive a license. We're not asking to prorate that because we're still in the process of still doing work. The county staff is still accumulating time and billables against that, and that's not necessarily an end product. The end product is the full $6,000 or whatever that full license fee is. So we're asking the board if the staff can prorate those and give credit to the next round of licensing, or when we start issuing our annuals, which we should start issuing some very shortly, those are prorated, so they're not paying for a full year and only receiving partial year. So we're not asking to refund the funds either, just credit towards their next round of licensing. So if I explain that right.
Okay, I think so. Any questions to staff before I open the public comment?
I'll just comment that this does not affect me or my personal cannabis. I'm not affected by this policy. Is that deal?
Okay. So you're not recusing yourself?
I'm not recusing myself.
All right, I will.
I will say that this was discussed, not the exact plan, but this concept was discussed in the ad hoc, and the concept was approved as the ad hoc as a whole, and suggested that the CAO move forward with this plan.
I guess the question that I would have is whether this $3,500, that's kind of the second installment in the total process, is that considered a fee for service, or is it considered the price of a product? Because if it's a fee for service, I guess that would be my question.
Yeah, And that's a great question, because in the ordinance, it's $6,000 for a product. We issue a license, and I guess, for lack of better terms, that $6,000 cost is their product. Administratively, we made a decision a while ago to not collect the $6,000 up front, because we were running into an issue with, well, I paid my $6,000, that means I should have something, and I agree, if you pay in full, you should have something in return, but the problem was they paid in full their $6,000, and then we were still going through the process and trying to get license up, so it was administratively changed, and I can't remember which administration it was, but to collect a $2,500, which we did kind of a fee study to see how much time and energy it goes to issuing a license, so that's when the $2,500 was. So the $2,500 is for the initial application fee. The $3,500 is when everything's completed and they pay. So even though $6,000 is for a product, the first $2,500, we're gonna, whether we issue a license or not, staff is still gonna incur those costs. So, because we have to go through the same process, whether it's a viable application or a non-viable application. So I don't really have an answer. Is the $3,500 separated out and that's the end product? No, but that's the point in which they receive the end product. So how's that for a political answer?
It's good. So, but you said in that there was a fee study conducted and actual staff time only accrued in researching whatever needed to be done. To determine issuance was only $2,500?
Yeah, they determined that it was around $2,500 of staff time and energy and cost to process and get the program going. I don't have that in front of me, so I don't know what the end result was, but that was the number they came back with, was $2,500 is really about the amount of time just to get that portion. Then to finish it out, and then the $6,000 covers the inspections and enforcement and of an ongoing license.
I think it's relevant that this didn't count Appendix Cs. This is a licensing fee just to apply when the program still had licenses in process.
Yeah.
And so that lowered the cost significantly.
Yeah. A new fee study is being completed, and I'm sure with we'll get the cost of because we're going to have hour per hour multiplied by the dollar that our consultants are spending in doing the Appendix C. So we'll have a better cost analysis of that real soon.
But again, the programming that you're asking for right now is only at the $3,500.
Well, I see where you're going with this. So, so if they receive the product, they paid $6,000. We subtracted. You're recommending we subtract the $2,500, and say there was 3 months in which they didn't get to use their product, so it would be prorated based on that $3,500. I'll leave that one up to the board, because that makes a lot of sense what you're saying, because we still had so let's say they only had it for 1 month. Well, that means they would only be $500 they actually used, but staff still paid the $25. Okay, I take that recommendation and would ask the board to consider that it's the non fee portion of the funds. I'm sure you'll get a different opinion from public comment in a second, but I understand the logic behind that, and it does make sense. So I will leave that for open discussion and kind of play with that one as the board goes through, if that's the appropriate way of doing it.
Yeah, I do have one question. Why did October 31st date?
That's the date which of the judgment that we had to suspend all license.
We suspended licenses in September. They had until October that they could hold their product. So I think it should be at the date that the licensing ended personally. And I think that would be a discussion for the board also.
That's the discussion report. Because up to October 31st, they could still sell the product.
But they could, their license was no good in September.
Okay. This is why we come to the board for direction.
All right. Do we have any other technical questions?
Amanda's chomping.
I can talk. I just wanted to be certain that the language is clear when you're talking about the non-fee portion, because there are both fees. They're just covering different aspects of it. So you're talking, I just wanted to be clear that you're talking about exactly, you're not talking about the initial application fee that goes with that. Thank you.
So it would be the licensing fee portion, not the application fee portion. All right. We will open public comment on item 4.7.
Lisa Wright, Lewiston, Chair, Board members. I have a handout. So I think you got a little bit of apples and oranges. What we're asking for is not for new applicants to receive something prorated back, which is the $2,500, but for renewal licenses to receive a prorated fee credit for what they paid. The $2,500 is not relevant to the processing of a renewal. It's for a new application. So I'm concerned with the language that's being proposed, and so I have presented you with the reasons why it should be different. Number one, the largest group of CCLs that received extension letters. That's the majority of our program. We never received actually counted permits. They expired with the urgency ordinance on September 2021. Maybe the TA lawsuit said that people with a valid license could continue operations, but permit holders were never notified of this. Our extension letters expired on September 5th. Second, there were a small number of CCLs that did not fall into the urgency ordinance. Those CCLs renewed in 2020. So for example, they renewed November 2020. They actually had licenses through the period of November 2021. So they're really the only ones that were affected by the court order with their early termination. Third, not all county CCLs are provisional. For example, any permit that had been issued with a categorical exemption, and I would estimate 35 plus of those, would be excluded under the language presented on the agenda. I have one of those permits, so I'm very familiar. So I would propose the agenda item be corrected to accurately depict what I believe is the intention of the credit to cover the full program. And this is existing permit holders, previous existing, or the renewals. And that would be to authorize staff to issue prorated fee credit to commercial cannabis cultivators whose 12-month paid permit was prematurely ended due to the urgency ordinance expiration and/or the TAA lawsuit court order. And to aid in that process, I've provided you with a sample credit request form. I used the county refund form and modified it so you can calculate what that is. I also provided you with a completed one for my license, where I come up with an average, the total fee paid for a 365-day license at a daily fee of, and my permit under the extension letter was valid for 147 days. So then you calculate 147 days times the daily rate, subtract it from my fee paid, and that would be the credit amount that I would request. So this has nothing to do with the $2,500 new application fee. This is about existing license holders renewal last year. I have a cottage license, so it's smaller, right? But the majority of the program is $6,000 they paid. Some of them only received a month or so. So I ask you to please take kind of an accurate accounting for what the requests have been. And I've come before you numerous times to
Thank you.
address it.
Do we have any other public comment?
And Darrell Forth of Weaverville. I guess I'm a little bit puzzled. Has County Council in fact approved this plan for rebate because we talk about selling a product and we're not selling a product. I think the only thing the county can do is charge for the work to provide the permit. And if we're selling a permit, that's something different than what I've always understood is what the county can charge for things like permits. You go to get a building permit and you're charged for the cost of issuing that permit. And it's generalized, it's not specific to that, but that's based upon what those costs are. And so a permit to grow cannabis, the fees should be related to what it costs to provide that permit, not a fee for the permit. That's at least my understanding from historical things. So I just make sure that everybody's on board, that we're doing the proper thing here. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Brower from Junction City. I'm supportive of the county adopting Lisa's template, saved staff time and further bungling or delay of this issue. It's ready to go. It seems like we can adopt it as is and solve this issue. She's done a good job of bringing it to your attention for many months, and I think she's got a real simple solution here. I'm in support of approving her template as is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Rosanna Betts-Garrett from Hayfork. I'm just a little bit confused still about exactly how this would work. So my other question too is if it's a $2,500 application fee, what the county did was they just sent out extension letters. But I don't understand how that could possibly cost $2,500 to just mail out those extension letters to people who apply, right? So in my particular case, my county cultivation license expires in March. I think it's an early springish expiration date. And I received an extension letter, but does that, I don't understand what exactly what happened there. Like I don't know, it just feels like I'm missing something there. Also, the Appendix C review costs, aren't those being covered by the grant that we got from the state, that $3 million? Isn't that what that's for, paying those consultants? I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding exactly how that accounting is working out, but I thought that money was to be used for consultants in helping the cannabis program, which in my mind would be this Appendix C consultants, rather than increasing the fees that we're already paying as for cultivation. Well.
Thank you. Before we answer those questions, do we have anyone on Zoom?
Yes. Adrian Keys.
Hey, good afternoon, Adrian Keys from Hayfork. I too am in support of Lisa Wright's proposition. I think it makes a considerable amount of sense. It takes into consideration like the actual flow of permitting and what we pay for and ultimately what we get. I also really would like to support what Rosanna Betts-Garrett just said. I think those are extremely good points that also need to be considered. And I know it's being this credit is being looked at as a potential like proration of our future license, but there will be people who are not going to re-enroll for any given reason, and I think the county should be prepared to pay out cash for those. And in fact, I think it would be a good idea to make that an option in general, because there may be people who are going to, who don't know yet whether or not they're going to move forward, but still will need to be requesting that refund. And so they would need to do that now, and they may not re-enroll, say, in 3 or 4 months. So there's a couple thoughts. I appreciate the concept, and I think it's absolutely necessary, just based on the fact that we did not receive product from the county, and all right, thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
Carla Avila.
Hello, this is Carla Avila from Haimpong, and I just wanted to, first of all, reiterate support for the comments made by Lisa Wright. We really want to ensure that the language in this authorization to staff to issue a prorated credit is applicable to all of the commercial cannabis cultivators who paid for a 12-month period and did not receive a full 12-month period to their permit or extension letter, regardless of which. Just to use myself as an example, my permit goes from April to April. I paid in April of 2021 for a renewal of a project that has not changed since I first applied, but it's for, I'm going on 7 years coming this year, and I was given an extension letter which expired on September 5th. I don't think we ever received official extensions to our extension letters of any kind, even though I know the court order allowed us an extension of moving product until October 31st. So a lot of, I believe about 90% of the permit holders would not possibly fall under this requested action the way it's written, unless there's something I'm missing here. And I just really want to ensure that we get this right. This is a really difficult time for people. We don't know when we're going to be able to operate again. Realistically, we would be starting already for this next year, so it's not looking good. And last year, we expired early and it was incredibly stressful. We had no movement forward on checklists until extremely recently. That was a whole other year that went by, 2021, that we've just been holding our breath. And this is, you know, these fees are, I think Darryl Fushland brought a very good point forward that I think is a really important discussion to continue. But as far as this agenda item, I don't think we should try and come up with a $2,500, as Lisa said. Some of these cottage permits cost less than that. We're talking about renewals for projects that were frozen that could not be developed in any way because we were already frozen until CEQA could move forward. So these renewals with extension letters need to be able to be under this requested action, and we need to make sure that language accounts for everybody. It's really, really critical to all of these farmers, especially during this time. I cannot emphasize that enough, how important it is to make sure this is inclusive and that we get it right, if that is indeed the intent. And thank you very much for bringing this forward. I think this is a really important item that we do this and make sure that we do the language very clearly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deidre Brower.
Good morning, Deidre Brower. I wanted to support Lisa Wright and what she said. You know, all the farmers, they paid for 1 year's worth of license, and due to no fault of their own, they were cut short at that time. So I just want to support that and what the other speakers had to say about it, and to make sure that that's clear and we can help them in a way. As Carla mentioned, there's a lot of things hurting them right now. So I think support from the county, as the farmers have showed consistent support to the county over the years, and patience, would be really appreciated, and it is the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhoda Kane.
Hi, this is Rhoda King from Trinity Center. I just wanted to kind of echo what the others are saying. I really appreciate staff and supervisors' consideration on this credit. I think that it's important that we think about the things that Lisa Wright said in her statement. I just want to let everybody know that we really do appreciate your support. We really do need your support, and any help at this time is just so important. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I have no other raised hands and no new messages.
With that, we will close public comment and bring it back to the board.
I can address a couple of the concerns if you like, and then
please do.
There, but comparing it to a building permit just doesn't really work when it comes to building permits in cannabis licensing or a building permit. With the cannabis license, especially under the program we've had under provisionals, where it's CEQA process, we're always in the initial process of these licenses. We haven't issued but a few actual annuals. I agree 100%. Once we get to where we're renewing annuals, it's a completely different story. But we haven't issued many annuals, so therefore the CEQA process and the ongoing work that needs to be continued until we get to that annual license, the staff is still participating and still has quite a bit of work involved in even just renewing, because we're not just renewing, we're still having to ask for documentation, get different plans, get different sets of information. So it's not the same as a building permit, where once we do the building permit, you have the inspector go out and then complete a project. So it is really convoluted and it is very difficult, and then maybe it's time to ask for, we bring this back with some additional information, because there's been some very good points made and some good discussion, and break down the difference between the fees. So I mean, I'll leave it up to the board on that, but trying to compare it to a building permit is real difficult because we're always in process right now until we issue a full annual license where SEEK was completed, and then the following year they come through, nothing's changed. Well, that's easy, but everything's changing right now, and everything has been changing. So the fee to process a license is always been ongoing.
And that was one of the questions that I would like to actually have more information on is with the extension letters, because my understanding is those extension letters, those were licenses that were just extended out. They didn't have to pay another fee. So those people that got the extension letters could have got close to 2
No, we
years.
paid.
We paid. I paid in full. I paid all $6,000
The
to my.
public comment period is closed.
I'm trying to help you out, that's
So
all.
when they got the renewal letter, did they have to pay the licensing fee to get the renewal letters? That's my question.
Renewal letter or the extension?
The extension letter. The extension letter. So if you had a license, so it was, I don't remember the date right off the top of my head, but you had a license and we have this directive that you cannot issue provisional licenses. So the county extended their licenses trying to figure out what to do. Did they pay a licensing fee for that extension?
I do not know.
That's a question that I'd like to have answered before we move forward. David, you have your hand up. Can you answer that?
Yes, sir. To be honest, no, I'm not entirely prepared to speak to the fee structure that you're discussing now. I believe the extension letters did have a fee associated with them. I do want to point out to the board that the fee structure is actually embedded in the cannabis ordinance itself. So just to highlight that becomes a difference from other permits, such as building permits that might be accrual of cost for inspections or otherwise. No, it's actually set in the ordinance itself. With respect to the discussion going on in public comment, I would like to have an opportunity to review what has been suggested and to help clarify this at a future date, if I could.
All right. One more question that would bring up is, are we going to have? Is there some kind of a time issue that would make it impossible for us to bring this back on the 1st of March? And
No, not at all. I mean, and it was brought to the board with the encouragement of the public, so we are not in opposition to the recommendations. We're in support that some sort of prorated fee structure should be established. It just has to be fair to both sides, to the county too, because we're not Santa Claus. We don't do things just out of goodness of our heart, but sometimes we have to do it and charge a cost for it. And so we just want to make sure that our costs are still covered under whatever agreement is established.
And I'd like to reiterate that I am in support of it as well as a concept, yes.
I think it's important to Darrow's question that the fee is based on not just one action. I filled out a building permit and then come back. The fee, there's monies that are spent year-round on this, and so let's take enforcement. If a person no longer has a license, they no longer benefit from the fact of enforcement of illegal cannabis. So that's a year-round cost that goes into the fee structure. Now you can argue that you don't like that, that's fine too, but that's what it is. So it's not just one, I've done the fee, it costs me so much to sign off this paperwork. And maybe Ms. Wright and I can talk offline. I'm a little confused on her difference. I mean, our staff says authorize staff to prorate credit to commercial cannabis cultivators holding non-expired provisional licenses. And she says authorize staff to issue prorated credit to cannabis cultivators whose 12-month payment was premature ended due to the urgency ordinance. I'm not quite sure I understand the subtleties of the difference. But I mean, from my view, the concept is, and obviously this has to go back and be re-looked at, but from my view, that people who paid, if you got 1 year license or 1 month of license, you should get 11 months back. If you got a half a year, you benefit for a half a year and back. So that's what I'd like to see moving forward.
Yeah, and I do think that if staff would like a chance to go back and look at some of the public comments and the feedback received today and come up with a better product, I think that would be a valuable thing to do, just to make sure that it would be nice to have something cannabis related that we got right the first time.
Why start now? I agree. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, and so, yeah, to the point that these are the renewals and you pay the $6,000 to get the renewal versus somebody that has a new license. This is for the renewals of people in the process. Is that, do we agree in that concept?
Yes, I believe so. But the dollar amount or the percentage is difficult because, as you know now, renewals are still in process. So we send out a renewal, but they're still having to send in information to complete the CEQA process. Not anymore, because now it's only going to issue just an annual. But there was staff time devoted to those files, even under just sending out a renewal. So that's where it kind of gets real tough.
So that does.
Yeah.
So since nobody had an annual, provisionals or ongoing new licenses, and that process is still going forward.
Yeah, the collection of information and so yeah, I mean, you see where the difficulty is of, do we audit each file to see the completion of it? Was it 92% completed, 25% completed when a renewal came through? So I mean, that's what makes it kind of difficult. So sometimes doing that, well, the $2,500 is an application fee. Do we set a number? I honestly don't know the answer now, as we've discussed more, because I see the validity on all sides. But again, the intent was to issue credits to those who didn't get to use a full 12 months of their license. So the sentiment of the agenda item is still to benefit and assist our cultivators. We're not in opposition to them. It's just what's fair for each side.
And I do want to make it also clear in my viewpoint that we have Appendix Cs on one side and our county ordinance on the other. If the county was having to pay $3.2 million for Appendix Cs, the fees would be a little more than $6,000. So that's really a separate issue. The refund is not for the Appendix Cs. The refund is for the ordinance in itself.
Yeah, and what I meant when I said we'll have a better accounting is when it's done, we will move away from consultants and do that in-house.
Right.
And those costs, then we'll know exactly. If we go into consultants' hours, it's probably still going to be less than our staff, because that's all they do. They're professionals. They have nothing else. Their job is just to review. But when we move away from that, and the county itself is doing its, and I'm anticipating, anywhere from 24 to 36 months from now, when the county is doing its review of Appendix C, that cost we'll know exactly what it is based on what the consultant's been doing. Right now, yes, that $3.2 million is a blessing, and that is going to save the cultivators a lot of money, because we're not putting that time into the renewals and the annuals. So more to come.
So moving forward with this item, do we need to make a motion to have staff bring it back?
I would make a motion to have continuance until the March 1st meeting. Is that a fair timeline for you to participate?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that was my motion.
There is some communications going on, I couldn't overhear here. Can you restate that, please?
I make a motion to continue this until the March 1st date of board meeting, and yeah, that's it.
Will you second?
You seconded it?
I just did that, yeah.
Seeing no further discussion, motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Brown. Supervisor Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Gilvin.
Aye.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
Right.
And for those in the audience, input to the CAO. I know there's more input that people wanted to make those comments to the CAO.
While you're on the subject, perhaps you could say, what is in question at this point on this subject? You might be able to comment on. I mean, this is it's quite simple.
I couldn't hear you, John, what did you say?
Well,
I'm just curious why the reason
I think
continue.
we can adjourn.
Would you like to read the closed session item?
Oh, yes, I have to read closed session. We have closed session item 5.1, Government Code Section 54954.5C, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, number of cases 3, American Cannabis Partners versus Trinity County et al., Trinity County Superior Court case number 20 CV 157, Carson et al. Versus Trinity County et al., Trinity County Superior Court case number 20 CV 136, Terrence M. Mines et al. Versus County of Trinity et al., Trinity County Superior Court case number 19 CV 106, and item 5.2, Government Code Section 54954.5E, Public Employee Evaluation, County Administrative Officer. Any public comment on the closed
And
session?
actually, Mr. Chair, if I may, there's a correction to the case number that was listed here on the Terrence Mines versus County
Yes,
of Trinity. That should be case number 20CV082. Thank you.
I'd like to state for the record, I'll be recusing from the American Cannabis Partners item due to my ongoing lawsuit with ACB.
Okay. And can you give me the last 3 numbers of that?
082.
Okay. Thank you.
We're doing a very
That
good.
was, I thought that was.
Public comment?
Second.
Sorry.
All right, go ahead. Public comment on closed session.
John Brower from Junction City. I want to continue to urge the board, especially on the American Cannabis Partners lawsuit, to maintain a strong posture on this case. And I don't know how many of you have actually read the court filings and such, but it's a very frivolous lawsuit that has, I think, both the intention and the effect of crippling our program and further undermining the benefits that our program brings to Trinity County. And I think the community as a whole would like to see you guys take a very aggressive posture on this matter and try to keep our program moving forward for the benefit of this county.
And just to confirm for public record, that was on item 5.1, correct?
It was concerning the American Cannabis Partners case.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll be adjourned, and I think we should probably take a short recess before we go into closed session.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone joining on Zoom for closed session?